The Awakening Storm. Captain Elena Vasquez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she studied the massive object on her scanner. The mining ship Prometheus had been working the asteroid belt in the Kepler system for 3 months, but nothing like this had ever appeared on their sensors before. The object was enormous, easily 10 times the size of her ship, and it was drifting without power through the darkness of space. "Maria, are you seeing this?" Elena called to her second-in-command, Maria Santos, who was monitoring the communications array. "Captain, whatever that thing is, it's not showing up in any of our databases," Maria replied, her voice tense with excitement and concern. "The metal composition is unlike anything we've ever encountered. It's definitely artificial, but the design is completely alien." Elena had been mining asteroids for 15 years, ever since humanity had begun its expansion into the outer systems. She had seen derelict ships before, ancient human vessels lost in the void. But this was different. This was something that had never been built by human hands. "Get me a full spectrum analysis," Elena ordered, "and prep the boarding pod. We're going to take a closer look." The crew of the Prometheus consisted of 12 people, all experienced miners and engineers who had volunteered for the dangerous work of extracting rare minerals from the asteroid belts. They were tough, practical people who had learned to solve problems with whatever tools they had available. Elena had chosen each of them personally, knowing that survival in the depths of space required people who could think quickly and adapt to any situation. As they approached the massive derelict, Elena could see that its surface was covered in strange symbols and designs that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The hull appeared to be made of a dark, metallic substance that absorbed light rather than reflecting it. There were no obvious entry points, no airlock doors or docking bays visible from their position. "Captain," called out Dr. James Reeves, the team's chief engineer, "I'm detecting faint energy readings from inside that ship. Whatever it is, it's not completely dead." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "Are we talking about life support systems or something else?" "I can't tell from here," James replied. "But the energy pattern is consistent with what we might expect from a hibernation or stasis system. Something big is sleeping in there." The boarding pod attached to the alien vessel with a soft thud, and Elena led a team of 4 into the mysterious ship. The interior was vast and dark, filled with corridors that seemed to stretch on forever. The walls were covered in the same shifting symbols they had seen on the exterior, and the air was thick with a strange, sweet smell. As they moved deeper into the ship, their lights illuminated massive chambers filled with what appeared to be crystalline pods. Each pod was the size of a small room, and inside each one was a figure that was clearly not human. The beings were tall and slender, with elongated heads and 4 arms. Their skin appeared to be a deep blue color, and they were completely still. "Stasis pods," whispered Dr. Lisa Park, the team's xenobiologist. "These beings have been asleep for a very long time." Elena approached one of the pods and examined the controls. The symbols were impossible to read, but there was something that looked like a status display. As she watched, the display suddenly flashed red, and a loud alarm began to sound throughout the ship. "We need to get out of here," Elena said, but it was too late. The pod in front of her began to open with a hiss of escaping gas, and the being inside began to stir. The creature's eyes opened, revealing pupils that were completely black. It looked at Elena with an expression of confusion that quickly turned to anger. It spoke in a voice that was like nothing she had ever heard, a sound that seemed to come from multiple throats at once. "Who dares to disturb the sleep of the hegemony?" the being demanded, its words somehow translating directly into Elena's mind. "What primitive species has the audacity to board our vessel?" Elena held up her hands in a gesture of peace. "We are humans from the planet Earth. We found your ship drifting in our system and came to investigate. We mean no harm." The beam pulled itself from the pod, revealing a body that was over 8 feet tall. Its 4 arms moved with a fluid grace that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Humans," it said, the word dripping with disdain. We have no record of your species. You are clearly a young race, barely evolved beyond your primitive planet. More pods began to open throughout the chamber, and dozens of the alien beings began to emerge. Alina realized that her team was severely outnumbered, but she stood her ground. We are not as primitive as you might think. Humanity has spread to over 200 worlds in the last century. The first being laughed, a sound like breaking glass. 200 worlds. Child, the Hegemony Empire controlled 10,000 systems before we entered our great sleep. You humans are nothing but insects who have built their nests in our territory while we slumbered. Elena felt her anger rising. This is not your territory. Humanity has established lawful claims to these systems through exploration and settlement. We have built cities, established trade routes, and created a peaceful civilization. Peace, the alien spat. The galaxy knows only one peace, and that is the peace of the hegemony. I am Supreme Overlord Kazith, commander of the Third Fleet of the Eternal Empire. You will immediately contact your leaders and inform them that humanity has exactly one standard cycle to evacuate all 47 systems that you have illegally occupied. Elena shook her head. We will not abandon our homes. These are our worlds now, and we will defend them. Kazith's black eyes narrowed. You will defend them. With what? Your crude chemical rockets and primitive weapons. We have been waging war among the stars since before your species discovered fire. Your resistance would be amusing if it were not so pathetic. The confrontation was interrupted by Maria's voice crackling through Elena's communicator. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the ship. I think you need to get out of there now. Elena backed toward the exit, keeping her eyes on Kazith. We will deliver your message to our leaders, but I can tell you now what their answer will be. Humanity does not surrender. Kazith's laugh followed them as they retreated to their boarding pod. Then humanity will learn what happens to insects who challenge the hegemony. Within hours of the Prometheus returning to the nearest human colony, word of the encounter spread throughout the United Colonial Defense Network. Admiral Marcus Chen, commander of Earth's military forces, called an emergency session of the Colonial Council. Admiral Chen was a veteran of the asteroid belt conflicts, a series of small wars that had been fought between mining corporations in the early days of human expansion. He was a short, stocky man with graying hair and scars on his hands from years of working in zero gravity. He had earned his rank through combat experience and an intimate knowledge of how to fight in the harsh environment of space. Ladies and gentlemen, Admiral Chen began, addressing the holographic images of colonial governors from across human space. We are facing a crisis unlike anything in human history. An alien empire has awakened and demanded that we abandon 47 of our systems. They have given us 1 week to comply. Governor Patricia Williams of the Centauri colony spoke first. Admiral, what do we know about their military capabilities? Very little, Chen admitted. Captain Vasquez's encounter suggests that they have technology far beyond our current capabilities. Their ships are massive, their weapons are unknown, and they claim to have controlled 10,000 systems at the height of their power. Then we should negotiate, said Governor Robert Kim of the Ta City system. If they're that powerful, resistance would be suicide. With respect, Governor, Chen replied, these aliens are not interested in negotiation. They see us as insects to be swept aside. They have made it clear that they consider our very existence in these systems to be illegal. Dr. Sarah Kim, Earth's leading xenobiologist and strategic analyst, stepped forward. Admiral, if I may, we need to consider that these beings have been asleep for an unknown period of time. Their technology may be advanced, but their tactics and strategies may be outdated. They're used to dealing with species that submit immediately to their demands. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Chen asked. I'm suggesting that they may have never encountered a species like humanity. We evolved on a world where conflict was constant, where survival required adaptation and innovation. Our entire history is one of smaller forces defeating larger ones through superior tactics and determination. Governor Williams nodded thoughtfully. The doctor has a point. Humanity has always been at its best when facing impossible odds. Admiral Chen looked around the room at the faces of the colonial leaders. Are we seriously considering war with an alien empire that claims to have controlled 10,000 systems? Admiral, said Governor Williams, my colony has 50,000 people who have spent their entire lives building a new world. They have families, homes, and dreams. I will not ask them to abandon everything they've worked for because some alien empire has decided to wake up and reclaim territory they abandoned. One by one, the other governors voiced their agreement. When the vote was called, it was unanimous. Humanity would not surrender. Admiral Chen spent the next 6 days preparing for what he knew would be the most difficult war in human history. He mobilized every available ship, from military vessels to converted mining ships. He called up the reserves and activated emergency protocols that had been established during the asteroid belt conflicts. The human fleet was small compared to what they expected to face, but it was made up of ships and crews that had been hardened by years of working in the dangerous environment of space. Mining ships that had been modified with defensive systems, cargo vessels converted into troop transports, and a handful of military ships that had been designed for patrol duties rather than major conflicts. On the 7th day, the hegemony fleet arrived. The first sign was a massive distortion in space near the edge of the Kepler system. Then, one by one, enormous alien ships began to emerge from what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself. The ships were massive, each one larger than the biggest human space station, and they moved with a grace that seemed to defy the laws of physics. Elena Vasquez, now serving as a liaison between the mining crews and the military, watched from the bridge of the command ship as the alien fleet took position. Admiral, she said quietly, there are over 300 ships in that fleet. Admiral Chen nodded grimly. And we have 87 ships, most of them converted civilian vessels. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to the hegemony fleet. The image of Supreme Overlord Kazith appeared on the main screen. The alien leader looked exactly as Elena remembered him, tall and imposing with those terrifying black eyes. Humans, he said, his voice filled with contempt. You have chosen to resist. This is unfortunate but not unexpected. Primitive species often fail to understand their proper place in the galactic order. Admiral Chen stepped forward. Supreme Overlord, I am Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Colonial Defense. We have no desire for war, but we will not abandon our homes. I urge you to reconsider your demands. Kazeth's laugh was like the sound of breaking crystal. Admiral Chen, your species has existed for mere moments compared to the age of the hegemony. We have crushed 1,000 civilizations, each more advanced than your own. Your resistance will be brief and futile. We'll see about that, Chen replied. The alien fleet began to move toward the human positions, their ships gliding through space with an otherworldly grace. As they approached, energy weapons began to charge, casting an eerie glow across the dark void. Elena watched as the human fleet prepared for battle. She thought about her crew on the Prometheus, about the colonies they were defending, about the billions of humans who were depending on them to hold the line. She thought about the mining ships that had been converted into weapons of war, about the engineers and miners who had volunteered to fight alongside the military crews. Admiral, she said, whatever happens, we make sure they remember this day. We show them that humanity doesn't go quietly into the night. Admiral Chen nodded. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we fight not just for our colonies, but for the right of humanity to exist among the stars. We may be outnumbered, but we are not outmatched. We have something they don't understand, the will to survive against impossible odds. All ships prepare for battle. The hegemony fleet continued its advance, confident in their overwhelming superiority. They had never encountered serious resistance from a species as primitive as humanity appeared to be. Their tactics were based on centuries of fighting against civilizations that would surrender at the first show of force. They were about to learn that humanity was different. The storm breaks. The first shots of the war were fired by the hegemony fleet as they approached the outer edge of human space. Their energy weapons lit up the darkness with beams of pure destructive force, targeting what they assumed were the primary human military vessels. The alien commanders expected the human fleet to scatter or surrender immediately when faced with such overwhelming firepower. Instead, the human ships began to move in ways the hegemony had never seen before. Rather than forming traditional battle lines, the human vessels spread out in a seemingly random pattern, using asteroids and debris as cover. The mining ships, which the aliens had dismissed as non-threatening, suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems and began launching attacks from unexpected angles. Admiral Chen watched from the bridge of the Defiance as his unconventional fleet engaged the alien forces. All ships execute Pattern Delta. Mining crews, you know these asteroid fields better than anyone. Use that knowledge. Elena Vasquez was aboard the Prometheus, which had been hastily retrofitted with defensive shields and mining laser arrays that could be used as weapons. You heard the Admiral, she told her crew. We've been working these rocks for years. Time to show these aliens what human miners can do. The Prometheus ducked behind a large asteroid, using its mining thrusters to maneuver in ways that would have been impossible for a traditional warship. When a hegemony cruiser approached, Elena's ship emerged from behind the asteroid and fired its industrial mining lasers directly into the alien vessel's engine section. Direct hit, shouted Maria Santos from the weapons station. Their engine output is dropping by 60%. Supreme Overlord Kazeth watched the battle from his flagship with growing confusion and anger. How are these primitives evading our weapons? Their ships should not be capable of such maneuvers. His tactical officer, a tall alien with silver skin named Vex, studied the sensor readings. Supreme Overlord, they are not fighting like any species we have encountered before. They are using industrial equipment as weapons and treating their civilian vessels as combat ships. Their tactics make no logical sense. Then adapt our strategy, Kazeth snarled. Bring in the heavy cruisers and eliminate their command ship. But the human fleet had no traditional command structure. Instead of a single flagship directing the battle, each ship commander was making independent decisions based on their knowledge of local conditions. The mining crews knew every asteroid and debris field in the system, while the military commanders adapted their tactics to take advantage of the unusual capabilities of their converted civilian ships. Dr. Sarah Kim monitored the battle from the command center on Mars, analyzing the alien tactics and looking for weaknesses. Admiral Chen, she said over the communication link, their formations are rigid. They're used to fighting opponents who follow traditional military doctrine. They can't adapt to our irregular tactics. Understood, Doctor. Chen replied, as he watched a group of converted cargo ships use their massive cargo bays to launch swarms of mining drones at the alien fleet. All ships maintain irregular patterns. Don't give them a chance to predict our movements. The battle raged for hours, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The hegemony fleet had superior firepower and shielding, but the human ships were more maneuverable and unpredictable. Every time the aliens thought they had developed a counter to human tactics, the humans would adapt and try something new. Captain Lisa Park, commander of the converted mining ship Frontier, came up with a particularly innovative strategy. All mining ships, prepare to deploy mining charges on my mark. We're going to give these aliens a taste of controlled demolition. The mining ships had been carrying standard industrial explosives for asteroid processing. Now they deployed these charges in a coordinated pattern around a group of hegemony ships. When the charges detonated simultaneously, they created a massive debris field that severely damaged several alien vessels and forced the rest to retreat. Kazeth's anger was now mixed with something he had not felt in centuries: uncertainty. These humans fight like no species we have ever encountered. They used tools of construction as weapons of war. They turned their weakness into strength. Vex nodded nervously. Supreme Overlord, perhaps we should withdraw and return with a larger fleet. These humans are more dangerous than we anticipated. Never. Kazith roared. The hegemony does not retreat from primitives. Order all ships to focus fire on their largest vessels. We will crush them through sheer force. But the human fleet continued to surprise them. Admiral Chen had divided his forces into small, independent groups that could operate without central coordination. When the aliens focused their fire on one group, the others would attack from different directions. The converted mining ships proved to be particularly effective, using their industrial equipment in ways that had never been intended but proved devastatingly effective against the alien vessels. Engineer James Reeves, working aboard the Prometheus, made a crucial discovery. Captain Vasquez, I've been analyzing the alien ship designs. Their hulls are incredibly strong, but they have a weakness. Their energy distribution systems are centralized. If we can overload their primary power conduits, we can disable entire sections of their ship. Elena immediately shared this information with the rest of the fleet. All ships target the energy nodes on the alien vessels. James has found their weak point. The tide of battle began to turn as the human fleet focused their attacks on the alien ship's power systems. The mining lasers, originally designed to cut through asteroids, proved capable of penetrating the alien hulls and disrupting their energy distribution networks. One by one, hegemony ships began to lose power and drift helplessly through space. The alien commanders, trained in centuries of traditional warfare, could not adapt quickly enough to counter the human tactics. Commander Vex approached Kazith with obvious fear in his eyes. Supreme Overlord, we have lost 47 ships. The humans are targeting our power systems with surgical precision. Our fleet is being systematically disabled. Kazith stared at the tactical display in disbelief. This is impossible. These are primitive savages with crude technology. How are they defeating the third fleet of the hegemony? Perhaps, Vex said carefully, we underestimated them. Their tactics are unlike anything in our experience. They fight as if they have nothing to lose. The Supreme Overlord was about to respond when a new signal appeared on their communications array. It was a message being broadcast on multiple frequencies, transmitted by the human fleet to every corner of the galaxy. Admiral Chen's voice filled the bridge of the hegemony flagship. To all civilizations within range of this transmission, this is Admiral Marcus Chen of the United Colonial Defense. We are humans, and we have just defeated the third fleet of the Hegemony Empire. We did not seek this war, but when faced with the choice between surrender and freedom, we chose to fight. The message continued, describing the battle and the human victory. We want all species to know that the hegemony can be defeated. Their technology may be advanced, but their tactics are outdated. They rely on fear and overwhelming force, but they cannot adapt to new challenges. We humans have shown that determination and ingenuity can overcome any odds. Kazith's face contorted with rage. Cut that transmission. Prevent it from reaching the outer systems. But it was too late. The human message was already spreading across the galaxy, carried by communication relays and merchant ships. The news that a primitive species had defeated a hegemony fleet would reach every corner of known space within days. Elena Vasquez watched as the remaining hegemony ships began to retreat. Admiral, they're pulling back. We've won the first battle. Yes, Chen replied, but this is only the beginning. We've shown them that humanity won't surrender easily, but they'll be back with more ships and different tactics. Dr. Sarah Kim's voice came over the communication channel. Admiral, we're already receiving messages from other star systems. Species that have been under hegemony control for centuries are asking for information about our tactics. I think we may have started something bigger than just a war for human independence. As the human fleet regrouped and began repairs, reports began to come in from across the galaxy. On worlds where the hegemony had established their rule, Subject species were beginning to organize resistance movements. The news that humans had defeated a hegemony fleet was spreading like wildfire, inspiring hope where there had been only despair. Supreme Overlord Kazeth stood on the bridge of his damaged flagship, staring out at the stars. His fleet had been defeated by a species that they had dismissed as primitive insects. Worse, the news of their defeat was spreading across the galaxy, potentially inspiring rebellion among the millions of species under hegemony control. "Sir," Commander Vex said quietly, "what are your orders?" Kazeth was silent for a long moment. "Send a message to the High Command. Tell them that we have encountered something unprecedented. These humans are not like any species we have faced before. They adapt, they innovate, and they refuse to surrender even when faced with overwhelming odds." He paused, then continued, "Tell them that we may have awakened something that we cannot control. These humans have shown other species that the hegemony can be defeated. The galaxy will never be the same." As the hegemony fleet retreated to their home systems, Admiral Chen prepared a message to be broadcast to every human colony. "Citizens of the United Colonies, today we faced an enemy that sought to destroy our way of life. They expected us to surrender without a fight, to abandon our homes and our freedom. Instead, we showed them the strength of human determination. But this victory comes with a price. We are now at war with an empire that spans thousands of systems. They will return with larger fleets and new tactics. We must prepare for a long and difficult struggle. However, we have already achieved something that may be more important than military victory. We have shown the galaxy that tyranny can be defeated. We have inspired other species to resist oppression. The war we fight is no longer just for human freedom, but for the freedom of all species who refuse to bow to the hegemony." Elena Vasquez looked out at the stars and thought about the future. The war was far from over, but humanity had shown that they would not go quietly into the night. They had taken their first step towards something greater than they had ever imagined, not just independence, but the liberation of an entire galaxy from the tyranny of the hegemony empire. The message that Admiral Chen had broadcast was already being translated into dozens of alien languages and transmitted to every corner of the galaxy. On worlds where the hegemony had ruled for centuries, subject species were beginning to organize, inspired by the human example. The war had begun, but humanity had already achieved something that would change the course of galactic history. They had shown that even the mightiest empire could be challenged, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that sometimes the smallest spark could light a fire that would burn across the stars. As the human fleet prepared for the battles to come, they carried with them the knowledge that they were fighting not just for themselves, but for every species that had ever dreamed of freedom. The hegemony empire had ruled the galaxy for millennia, but they had never faced an enemy like humanity. The war for galactic freedom had begun.